roast one another and say, we really did do pretty good job after all, when it all comes down to it. But still, it's still temporary here. It's eternal there. But right now, it doesn't feel that way. It feels like hard duty, doesn't it? It really does.
It really does. And I've asked Aaron about that.
Just to be able to hug him one more time. I know that. I mean, he knows it too.
And interestingly, I have hugged him. Tell us
that story.
That's the incredible thing. So I never expected it would happen, but in a dream. And I've heard since that they're called dream visitations. Aaron has visited me in some dreams, and in one dream, his hug was so real, I didn't want to wake up. I didn't even know I was asleep. It was so incredibly real.
I know. You know that I hear from widows now. This is how thin the veil is becoming. I hear from widows whose husbands visit them and they have physical sex. Believe it or not.
I believe it.
So
after that hug, and I could feel it physically. The
first time a widow told me that story, I actually blushed. It was impossible not to. So that's how thin the veil is getting. Yes. The veil has been thinning, they tell me, for probably 100 years now. It's getting thinner and thinner. I hear very clearly now from beings, which I never did before. I hear their voice so clearly, and I am not particularly, and you hear his voice so too, right?
Yes, in the beginning I heard a few others, and I asked him when I wasn't hearing my mother, and then my mother spoke to me and said, that's because she lets Aaron do all the talking. You know, she's telling me that Aaron speaks for her and speaks for everyone else. And on rare occasions since I have heard another voice, but it's mostly Aaron. I would say overwhelmingly Aaron's voice. And my understanding is that often happens because one soul can speak for many.
That's right. That happens all the time. The upper level beings all speak together. Sometimes a collective of thousands of them will speak with one voice. They choose someone, I guess. They have one spokesperson. Yep. But that's always been happening for a long time, and usually through someone who has psychic ability. I'm a psychic as a post, but there are certain beings, I'm not going to say yet who they are, but your jaw would drop if I told you, who talk now all the time. There's one in particular who looks over my shoulder when I'm answering people, and when he decides he's going to say something, he really does, and I hear his voice very clearly now.
Wow.
It's amazing. And I am not psychic at all, but the veil is so thin at this point, it is unbelievable.
It's so amazing. And that you would mention the last 100 years, because it seems to tie in with the advent of technology and electromagnetic energy, use of electromagnetic energy and so forth, and advancements we've all made, mankind has made towards it. And, the fact that I discovered an image of Aaron that was created in Dr. Sonia Rinaldi's laboratory. Yes. And I found out that she is able to record hundreds of images, if not thousands.
Yes.
And there Aaron was, and this was completely unexpected. In fact, it was a photo I had never seen of him before, but it was him. And when I saw it, it was on the Rinaldi. I was watching the documentary, the one that came out this February called Rinaldi. And at 58 minutes into the documentary, there's a photo of my son. And I just about fell off of my chair. Where did she get that? And I instantly started sending it out, and my other kids, oh, wow, where did you get that picture of Aaron, Mom? And you're not going to believe this. And the interesting chain of events is that Sonia, before I even knew about her documentary or had heard about it, I wrote to her and she contributed a chapter to Gathering at the Doorway. And next thing I see this picture of Aaron in the documentary, and I'm like, how could all this happen? Well, we know how it happens now. And one time I wrote in Aaron's energy in my first book about Aaron telling me that he'll be back and I'll recognize him. And this was as a result of me crying all the time. It's not uncommon, I think, for parents to ask that question. I just want my child back. You have that feeling, and I would go through that for periods of time in my grief. I just want my son back. And he told me one time, I will be back, Mom, and you will recognize me. And I said, oh, yes. What do you mean? Are you going to be one of my grandchildren? I'm going to recognize you. How am I going to recognize? He didn't answer until he appeared in the documentary. That was my answer. And I did recognize him. And since then, a number of other parents have discovered images of their own children in that documentary.
There's literally a station, a physical station in the astral plane, and they go there, they're photographed, and they appear in that film, and they're appearing on film all the time in her station here. There are names you would recognize who are scientists who are doing this. Yep.
And absolutely. A lot of people might hear us talking about this and thinking, oh, we're caught up in the woo-woo stuff. But this is,
science.
Recorded evidence.
Yes. Yes.
Instrumental recordings following scientific research, like any other scientific study, and gathering evidence.
That's right.
And Aaron tells me this is way easier for them to do. And we're finally at a stage now where we can receive these images because there are people like Dr. Rinaldi who have been instructed how to get them. So
the problem really is the people here, because many people here, many more people could do this, but the problem is the scientists there are very choosy about who they will use as lab assistants here. They will only work with people whose motives are pure. And too many people here think this is a way they might be able to make a buck. They know our hearts, and they will only work with people of pure heart, and that's a fact. And I know many more things I could say, but won't. And that's just the story. But no, I can feel it happening to me. As I say, there are people who are working with me now, and it astonishes me what I'm able to hear. I mean, the people who are working with me now to answer emails, it just boggles the mind. Oh my word, I just can't even believe it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. It makes my answering emails a lot more confident. I've got to tell you, when people are telling me what to say, and I don't have to do any, let me see now, what do I know about that? People are just telling me what to say. It's wonderful. Makes my life a lot simpler.
Well, that's exactly how Aaron has been operating with me. He tells me what to say, and he teaches me along the way. And he did tell me that he said to me, Mom, it's not your job to be a psychic or a medium. It's your job to spread this message. And
that's right.
All right. Whatever you tell me to do, Aaron, I'll do.
That's right. That's right. We're all turning into Carol. We all have our own Mikey telling us what to say. It's turning out to be a lot simpler. Oh, my dear, I wish we could talk all day. This is so much fun. We're coming to the end of our time, though. I'm sorry to say. Hasn't this gone quickly?
Very, very.
It goes very fast. And your website is aaronsenergy.com. That'll be in the notes too, everyone, so you won't have to pull off the road to write it down. What do you want people to take away from our conversation today?
Well, thank you for asking. And that is a big question. I've thought about that a lot. What do I want people to take away from all of this? And really what I want people to take away is the message that Aaron is channeling through me. And that is that everyone is created from love. We are all valuable parts of this intricate universe, and that sharing our stories creates connections. So the more we share our stories, the more we open minds and the more we open the door to the other side. So we're connecting with our loved ones every time we share. And that was the reason for publishing the anthology.
Well, beautifully said, my dear. We have been talking with Camille Dan, a beautiful, beautiful, lovely woman who is doing for others. Out of her own grief, she has made something powerful and beautiful for other people. And I just love that so much. And everyone, we've come again to the end of our time. This has been Roberta Grimes and Seek Reality. I'm so happy you could be with us today and hear this wonderful conversation. Please never forget, you are a powerful, eternal being. You never began. You never will end. And when you really get what that means, it's going to change everything in our life, your life, my life, all of our lives for the better. Each time one person understands it, it changes it a little bit for all of us. So please, please try to understand that really is true. You are an eternal being. Next week, our guest will be, we're sort of on a roll here. Let's go with Carol and Mikey Morgan. And as you probably know by now, Mikey is a genuine 6th level being. He last lived on Earth in the 1600s, and he started to worry about us so much. He was living an eternal life. He could just have stayed there and, drank ambrosia and just had a good time. But he took a voluntary 20-year lifetime on Earth that ended in 2007 specifically so he could answer our questions through his mother, Carol, who swore she never would have signed up for this, lose her son so young, but she did. He swears she did. And I know you're probably a skeptic when I tell you this, but I was a skeptic too in the beginning. And this is all true. This is all real. I met Carol and Mikey in 2011, and I've since then tested our dear friend Mikey exhaustively. And then I helped them write a book, and it's called Flying High in Spirit, a young snowboarder's account of his ride through heaven. I can tell you without reservation, Mikey Morgan is exactly who and what he claims to be. He's the only person I know who actually knows a lot more about the afterlife than I do. I've heard him answer hundreds and hundreds of questions at this point, and while Carol knows nothing, she's never studied any of this, Mikey has never made a mistake. In fact, I've learned quite a bit from him at this point. Please join us next week and let's hear more of what our wonderful friend Mikey has to say about all this. And this week, we've been talking with Camille Dan, who is a mother of Aaron in spirit and his 2 brothers and 1 sister who are here with us. Camille has a professional experience as a registered nurse, a medical technical consultant for feature films and television, a private investment manager, and now she's the self-published author of Aaron's Energy, an unexpected journey through grief and the afterlife with my brilliant son. And she's also the publisher and curator of Gathering at the Doorway, an anthology of signs, visits, and messages from the afterlife. And she is a chapter contributor to Chicken Soup for the Soul. Guess who the author of that probably was? Grieving, Loss, and Healing, and the Beauty of a Grieving Mother. She appears on podcasts, radio, and YouTube shows, and also some live events. And all earnings from her book sales go to charitable causes. So I think, frankly, Camille is a beautiful soul herself. I'm so glad to have met her. And my dear friends, it's time to mention, this is going to be a commercial we're going to be doing each week. Once again, Seek Reality Online is just getting going. You're going to be your one-stop resource for all things afterlife. Go to seekreality.com and start to learn what really is going on. And the Afterlife Research and Education Institute is Seek Reality Online's great nonprofit cousin. Both of them are headed by our beautiful friend, Dr. R. Craig Hogan. Craig is the sole living person who is most on top of everything afterlife and greater reality. And AREI puts out a great monthly newsletter. Just go to Afterlife